Very good. Good evening, everyone. This is the Red Hook Town Board meeting of April 10th, 2018. Would you be kind enough to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. Happy spring. Will it be spring one of these days? We hope so, very much. I understand this weekend may be in the high 60s. Steve, we have, as always, we have for the folks watching at home, the agenda that is slated for this evening. So that you can see what we'll be discussing and decide for yourself just how much excitement you can take in one evening. Okay, very good. Thank you, and we begin the meeting, the first meeting of the month, as we do always, with the Supervisors Report. And I will also put that up on the screen for folks at home. And it's a monthly accounting that is produced by our terrific bookkeeper, Ann Conway. And this month in particular, it shows a lot of money coming in, the receipt of the property taxes. And so we have for an opening balance in March, and this is the period March 1st through March 31st, of $4,032,265, receipts of $4,496,616, and disbursements of $1,347,672, for a remaining balance of $6,451,209. And you'll see a large disbursement amount. We also collect taxes for our fire districts or fire companies, and for our libraries and so on and so forth. So you have the Supervisors Report. Did you have any questions? There's
Move to accept the report.
okay.
What are these, I'll second that,
Yeah,
what are these
there's
revisions?
Yes, so there are adjustments made based upon the closing of the books for 2017 and 2018. So we allocated some of the fund balance towards projects, and so they trigger revisions of these January and February reports as well. And so that's what Ann has prepared for you.
So then we're actually voting on all of the reports?
Exactly right. So we have three, March, February, January, and even the December one. And she has also prepared the appropriate budget adjustments for that as well. And you also have for your review your monthly variance reports, which are prepared for you, and bank statements.
What's the public pound line? Is that dog pound? Public pound?
They must be.
The increased revenue? I'm just curious.
You're looking at which one now? Oh, the budget adjustments, yeah. I would entertain a motion to accept the supervisor's reports in this case.
I moved already.
Bill moved
Oh,
and Sarah.
thank you.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the budget adjustments, the corresponding budget adjustments that go with that. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And Sue, we have the clerk's report as well.
This is clerk report for March of 2018. Total local shares remitted to supervisor as town revenue, $1,267.54. Amount remitted to New York Ag and Auctions for a spayed and neutered program, $48. Amount remitted to New York State Department of Health for marriage licenses, $67.50. An amount paid to New York State Environmental Conservation, $188.96, for a total state, county, and local revenue of $1,572. Pursuant to section 27, sub 1 of the town law, I hereby certify that the foregoing is a full and true statement of all fees and monies received by me, Sue McCann, town clerk, town of Red Hook, during the period stated above in connection with my office. And that is it from March.
Very good. And would somebody like to make a motion to accept the clerk's report?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Very quickly with announcements, we'll dispense with that. The Red Hook Community Center would like to invite everyone on Saturday, April 28th at 12 o'clock to their first anniversary. It's hard to believe that it's been open and operating for a full year now. And that's from 12 to 4. The address is 59 Fifth Street. I believe that's right after we have our Arbor Day festivities here, or during also. And that is April 28th, Saturday. The building department would like to remind folks, if in fact it does warm up and folks are looking to enjoy a swimming pool, we are going to be posting on the website the regulations that guide the enclosures for swimming pools, and we recommend that you take a look at that beforehand. And the last thing I have is that we have 4 Eagle Scouts, actually from the Rhinebeck troop, I think it's 228, who Eagle Scout candidates, Jack Hobson, Ethan Eusted, we know Ethan, he's the son of Laura Eusted, our CAC chair here, and Patrick Murphy. And the last one is Chapman Odlum. And their projects that they worked on include constructing modular rehearsal cubes for the Red Hook High School Drama Club, a lean-to that they built at the Wilcox Memorial Park, that's our county park over on Route 199 East, in Pine Plains area. Ethan built and installed a footbridge and worked on trails at Wilderstein. And Patrick's project was to make landscape improvements to the Lions Club mini park in Rhinebeck. And so we have 4 resolutions. There'll be a ceremony in a few weeks to honor them, their achievements as Eagle Scouts. And that's all I have for announcements. Does anybody else have anything they would like to make?
We could just remind people that the townwide cleanup is April 21st from 2 to 4, starting at the community center.
That's
right?
correct, yeah. Very good. Anybody else? All right. Hearing none, I think we'll move right into, if that's okay, we'll hold off on public comments just for a few minutes because we're late with our public hearing. It's a very specific public hearing on a hardship waiver application to local law number 4 of 2017. We received an application from a landowner who is just building their house and a couple of accessory structures on a property in Butts Corners Road, just a few acres, but they are logging a couple of those acres in order to make room for those structures. It's a heavily wooded property, and I understand from the building department they are going to be selling the wood off the property, and so the building department said that it triggered this moratorium, and so we had an application by the landowner, Tinny Sassano, and I think the application, which by the way received planning board approval, sort of clearly articulates, I think I have the map here for the folks to take a look at.
Is this microphone on? It is? You can hear it? All right.
Thanks, Steve.
Can you hear in the back?
Yeah, so here's the property. It's one of those Bud's Corners lots that I think was developed quite some time ago. And you can see the structures there. There's a house and some associated accessory structures as part of the parcel. The parcel is 5 acres, I believe, in totality, and there's a couple acres that are set to be cleared in order to accommodate. And it looks like the clearing is essentially the area bounded by those structures. It doesn't seem to extend beyond the general perimeter. And so I'm not quite sure how this was triggered by the building department, but it was, and so we have this waiver application.
Mr. Supervisor, can we just confirm with the clerk that the publication was in fact
Yes,
submitted?
Yes.
I have the notice, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Did you want to read the notice, Sue?
Yes.
Or just give us a summary of that?
Please take notice that a public hearing will be held by the town board of the town of Red Hook on April 10th, 2018 at 7:35 p.m. local time at the Town Hall, 7340 South Broadway, Red Hook, New York, to hear all interested persons on an application received March 28th, 2018 from Tinny Chan Sassano for a hardship waiver of the provisions of local law number 4 of 2017 entitled A Local Law Placing a 12-month moratorium on large-scale commercial extractive operations in the town of Red Hook. The request for waiver concerns tax parcel 134-889-6274-00-148-062, an approximately 5.5 acre parcel, 5.05 acre parcel on Bud Corner Road in the town of Red Hook, Dutchess County. Please take further notice that copies of proposed waiver applications are available for review at the Town Hall, 7340 South Broadway. All interested persons will be given an opportunity to be heard or by directing comments in writing to the town board, same address. All reasonable accommodations will be made for persons with disability. In such a case, please notify the town clerk in advance at the above address or phone 845-758-4606 so that arrangements can be made. By order of the town board of the town of Red Hook dated March 28th, 2018, Sue McCann, town clerk, town of Red Hook.
Thank you very much, Sue. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. It's 7:46. Would anybody like to speak on this topic? Christie? Yeah, if you'd be kind enough just to tell us your name, that's all we need.
My name is Christy Wheat-Balesi. I'm here as the architect for Tinny Chan Sassano. Just reiterating that what she's doing is removing trees to build her home, and she's not doing a large-scale commercial extractive operation.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was pretty succinct. I could learn from you, Christie. Okay, would anybody else like to speak to the topic? All right. Kenny?
Just a point of information,
Yes.
why did it get stopped? Because it was a large scale?
So the moratorium lists timber harvesting as one of the things that's prohibited during the moratorium period. And in our definitions, timber harvesting, like this would fall potentially under timber harvesting.
Moratorium was passed several months ago.
Because they're selling, they're cutting the
Right,
logging
I
and
understand,
selling
I
it. So
understand.
that's fine.
Because, I have a 50-acre woodlot that I'm gonna be doing woodlot management in a few years. So is that gonna be,
The moratorium's only till August. So you're good.
Yeah, and you can take a look at the exemptions and
Why was it put on anyway?
why was it put on?
The moratorium.
It was because we don't have, we really don't have any language in our zoning, any sufficient language in our zoning that deals with large-scale operations. And so we're taking this time, there's a subcommittee that's been charged with trying to get just reasonable language associated with this with regard to water, mining, timber harvesting, all the natural resources.
I thought DEC was monitored.
Yeah, so DEC has some regulations
Okay.
and plays some role, and so we're trying to see if there's, if there's voids and what we should put on the books.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's some things the
All right.
local
Yeah.
government can do too.
And I would just, Mr. Supervisor, I would also note that the moratorium does not apply to timber management conducted in accordance with the
That's
forest
right.
management plan approved by DEC pursuant to section 480A of the real property tax law.
That's right.
So that's already excluded from the moratorium.
Yeah.
Right, right,
That's why I direct you to the exemptions. There are a few exemptions that you might want to take a peek at.
right.
Okay. Very good. Anybody else like to comment at this public hearing? If not, I would like to make a motion that we close the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor? All right, thank you very much. So we'll tackle that as the first item in the agenda in just a few minutes. We'll do public comment period in the beginning, or would anybody like to make some public comments? Thank you, Penny.
I'm gonna be brief, 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay. And as a reminder, it was adopted years ago, a guideline to try to have public comments limited to 3 minutes. Just as a reminder, not so you get offended.
All right, I'll keep it below 5.
You'll be to the work. Okay.
I'll try.
All right, very good, thank you.
So I wasn't here for the last meeting, and I just wanna, I did see it on YouTube, so I just wanna make some corrections so after listening to the discussion on Freeborn Lane Talk, I'd like to clarify a few topics. One, this is not and has never been a seasonal gate. Once it was decided to close the road, due to an enormous amount of garbage along the road, it was intended to be kept closed. Two, there are no adjoining landowners inside the gates. The landowners outside the gates have for over 25 years been using the south end of Freeborn Lane with no problem. Three, when West Curly Corners was unpassable on the west end due to a downed tree when we had that big power outage, all landowners had passable roads to the east and south of West Curly. No one was blocked in because of Freeborn Lane. And four, the village of Tivoli has been notified, and you have a letter from them stating what they expect if and when the road changes ownership. So to your request, Sarah, in the meeting, and I made this concise, and I know we probably might have to add to it, but these are some things we could do. Freeborn Lane closure and ownership, in reference to the change in ownership of Freeborn Lane from the South Gate to Lasher Road. One, title search and any necessary documents completed at my cost. Two, have the road land be attached to the parcel number there, which is 16.91 acres. And then three, have any easements attached to that new parcel stating the request of the village of Tivoli, and allowing Northwind Farm access to Lasher Road. And so nothing's really gonna change. I've given keys to the village of Tivoli and Northwind Farm. So this is pretty concise, so you could add to it or whatever.
This parcel is the parcel you own east of the road, right?
West of the road.
West of it.
Right. Well, I own both sides of the road.
Oh,
But I'm gonna attach the ownership to this particular parcel. Whoever buys it years from now will have the responsibility of the road and whatever's attached to it. Okay?
Thank you, Kenny, and I think as I mentioned to you, at some point in the near future, our attorney is gonna develop a list of requirements. And just to note on what you handed us, the land to be attached to the parcel, that would not be something that we would be involved in, is the subdivision or the combining of the
Well,
parcel. That would
something
be something you would be involved in.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Just to
Yeah.
keep it clear for future
Right.
generations.
Okay, very good. Anybody else like?
Doesn't Tivoli own, isn't their parcel to the west of the road?
They're on both sides of the road, west and east.
Tivoli is on both
Yes.
sides?
They
Yeah.
have a-
Well, the mountain is, that they have
That's
there.
on the west side of the road.
West side, yeah, okay.
The old dome.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, very good. And any other public comments before we get started with the agenda? Okay. So, item number one, if we could, perhaps tackle this quickly. We have Michelle Gregg here to make a presentation to us. Do we think that we can,
Is it item number one, the waiver application?
yes,
Okay.
that's why. If we think we can tackle number one in a few minutes, why don't we go ahead and do that? It seems to be, what we would often deem a no-brainer on this one. The clearing is just to provide room for the house and for the associated structures, and it certainly doesn't,
What's the resolution number, Sue?
18.
18?
18,
So I would move resolution 18 as it's drafted.
okay. And as it's drafted, just so you know, that the resolution says that, by reviewing this application, that we conducted both a public hearing, but also we have we've advertised, and we found that the proposed development of a single-family home on the conditions set forth in the application would have been a permitted special permit use in the absence of the moratorium law. In its review, we've taken into account the impact on water supply, agricultural lands, open space, recreational use, rural character, scenic view sheds. The application will constitute an unjust result and cause the applicant substantial economic hardship if waiver is not granted. Obviously, if there's no room to build a house, then that would have a significant impact. The proposed use of the property was subject to special permit conditions, and the planning board reviewed this project and approved those conditions. And it's compatible with the existing land use in the immediate vicinity of the Sassano parcel. And so the town board, after reviewing the comments that we heard, which were a few, and after taking a look at the application, finds it in the best interest of the town to authorize the hardship waiver on the conditions provided herein, and Councilman O'Neill moves that motion. And the notice of the public hearing on April 10th.
When was it published?
March 31st.
So March 31st is the first date there.
And
March
same
31st.
for the sign board.
And same for the sign board.
And April 10th for the public hearing date will be included in this resolution now.
The two blanks would be March 31.
Both of those are March
Those are the
31st.
posting and publication dates,
Yeah.
right, thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Very good. And is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay. So tonight we have a presentation by our planner, Michelle Gregg from Green Plan. A couple of years back, at the time of adoption of our historic overlay zoning, some of the landowners, in particular in the Upper Red Hook area, asked us to take a look at the uses when they were looking at the zoning in their area. Some of those uses seemed completely incompatible and out of character, out of scale with the commercial district. There is a district, you'll see in Michelle's presentation, a small commercial district in Upper Red Hook. And at that time, and we're talking good 2 years ago, we agreed to take a look at those uses and see if we could address that with a proposal to keep it more in character with the area. So with that in mind, we have a draft of local law number C of 2018, which essentially speaks to uses in various commercial districts within the township. So, Michelle, would you like to take it away? We'll see which,
I think you're gonna do better with the PowerPoint.
with the PowerPoint one?
Yeah, I think that's what you decided.
Okay, let's try that.
If you can come in.
Whatever loads.
Is that it?
Hopefully that'll come into
I'm
better
gonna stand here if
focus.
that's all right.
Can folks see this from the angle they are? Can you get some sense of that? We could tilt it a little bit. Michelle, could I ask you to just maybe tilt it about 5 more degrees towards the
I
audience?
think that's
If you
above
wouldn't
my- I
mind,
think that's a
so.
little bit above my pay scale, but I'll try.
Okay. Oh, that's good.
Wow.
That's
Is
good.
that good?
You did it. That's good.
Okay, good.
There are handouts up here.
Yes,
if I
there
Yes,
want
and we do
some,
have
but-
summary handouts, yes, thank you
There
for
are
reminding me.
handouts.
And if you don't want to read the, oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And the other thing, Sue, I have on a copy machine, copies of the law. And we'll have the full-fledged law, more copies in front here as well. If you'd like to take those, my apologies. They're on the machine as we speak. So, whenever you're ready, Michelle, and Steve, if you just let us know that you can hear and see and all that stuff for the folks at home, because folks will want to see this. Okay? Very good.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michelle Gregg, as Robert mentioned. I'm the planning consultant at the town of Red Hook. And as Robert mentioned, for the past 2 years, the town has been reviewing the commercial uses in various, started with the Hamlet business, and they, decided to look at some of the other districts as well, the various commercial business districts in the town, to ensure that they are consistent with the comprehensive plan and with the intents or purposes of the various districts, and also, as Robert mentioned, to ensure that they're compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods. So based on that review, the town has prepared this local law, number C of 2018. It's called number C because it's the 3rd law of this year. And I'm going to give you a brief overview of what's included in the local law. I'm going to provide you with as much detail as I can in a short period of time. But I do encourage members of the public to review the local law and familiarize yourself with it, so you have a more complete understanding of what's been proposed. It can be found on the town's website, redhook.org. It's on the homepage on the right. There's the local law and all the attachments and another study that I'm going to be referring to in a moment. There's also this 2-page handout that Paula prepared, which is on the task force, and we pass that around so that you can follow along with the presentation. Zoning is very particular and detailed and specific, and so I may not be able to answer a very specific question you have about the local law tonight. But if you submit it to the town board in writing, I would be happy to reply to it in writing. I want to make sure that you have accurate information. So go to the next page, please, Robert.
Okay.
So first of all, this is a summary of the 5 main items that are addressed in the local law. Food trucks, creation of a new zoning district called the Hamlet Business District, drive-through businesses, formula businesses, and auto-oriented uses in the TND-CC district. So those are the 5 main categories that I'm going to discuss one at a time. The next one, please, Robert. So currently in the town, there are no provisions governing food trucks. There are a number of food trucks, a couple of food trucks in the town, but there's nothing on the books that even really allows for them or in any way regulates them. I understand that the zoning enforcement officer did make a determination that a food truck could be allowed as accessory to an agricultural use, but as far as I know, that's the only thing that's been done with regards to food trucks. So the proposal is to include a new chapter in the town code, chapter 79, or the Untitled Food Trucks. And it would allow food trucks in the districts that are listed there, the agricultural business district, the I or institutional district, the business 1, business 2 districts, B1, B2, the traditional neighborhood district, commercial center, and the traditional neighborhood district office industrial area. So those are the districts where food trucks are proposed to be allowed. It would require a permit from the zoning enforcement officer. An applicant will be required to submit information to the ZEO. There would be no requirement for planning board review, so it's simply a permit that would be obtained from the zoning enforcement officer. The chapter would regulate private property only. There is an exemption for certain situations for public property, but primarily it's focused on private property. So it's not regulating food trucks that are parked on a public highway, for example. Minimum property size would have to be a ½ acre. And there would be two different types of permits, a seasonal permit, which would be valid for 9 months, and a daily permit, which would be valid for 3 consecutive days. And food trucks would be allowed to operate between the months of March 1st through November 30th, which are generally speaking, not this year exactly, but generally speaking, those are the warm months of the year. It still seems to be winter and April right now. But those would be the months that they would be allowed to operate. There would be a maximum allowance of 3 food trucks per property at any one time, and the size would be a maximum of 256 square feet. A food truck would be required to meet the side and rear setbacks for the zoning district in which it is located. But there would be, for all of the districts, there would only be a minimum 5-foot front yard setback, so that would be much less than most of the principal building setbacks would be in most of those districts. And the idea is to locate them as close to the sidewalk or the road so that so they have visibility and customers can easily access them. There would be a distance separation required of 150 feet from any existing restaurant. This is actually a very standard separation distance that you find in food truck regulations, and it's included because a lot of restaurants sometimes feel that they are at a disadvantage because of food trucks, because there's not as much overhead for a food truck, and so there's frequently a separation distance from existing restaurants. Okay. Outdoor seating would be allowed with picnic tables and umbrellas, but no outdoor lighting or tents or amplified sound or loudspeakers. And this is really, and as you can see also, no food preparation outside the food truck. And this is really because they're trying to really balance the interests of people who would like to have food trucks with, adjacent neighbors. Bear in mind that the agricultural business district is actually a very large district that runs throughout the town, and in many cases, properties in that district may be adjacent to residential uses. So they're trying to create a sort of a balance between allowing this use but not having an impact adjacent properties. And then there's details like trash receptacles would be required and so on. There are a couple of exemptions. Anybody in any zoning district would be permitted to cater special events on private property. Even if the food truck is not particularly allowed in that residential, it might be the RD3, for example. Somebody in that district may want to have a food truck for a graduation party or a wedding. They would be allowed to do that with a permit from the CEO. And also the town board would be allowed on occasions to allow for food trucks for special events on private property.
Public.
Public property, yes, thank you. Next. The Hamlet Business District. This is the existing B1. We could scroll up a little bit more, we'd see, current B1 on the left, and the proposed HB district on the right. To get your bearings, this is just a close-in shot of this area of the zoning map. You can see Pitcher Lane is running diagonally across the upper portion of the map, and Route 9 is bisecting Pitcher Lane there. You have the B1 district. To the right of that is the Hamlet district, which is the historic hamlet of Upper Red Hook. Located in the B1, if you need to get your bearings, is the Cornucopia Deli and the Beverage Way and the Gaslight Motel, the Countryside Storage. So that's this area of the community. I want to point out that you can see from this map that the Hamlet district, the blue, which is in blue, is a relatively densely settled district, not dense like New York City or anything, but it's denser than the surrounding districts. You can see there's very little density in the Ag Business District. Even the RD3 and the RD 1.5 are not as heavily populated. So there is a relatively, a moderately dense settlement adjacent to the B1 district. And you can see too that the lots, particularly on the east side of the road, are quite shallow in the B1 district. They don't go back very far. So the proposal is to create a new district. We have to actually create a brand new district if you want to change things in the B1 in Upper Red Hook, because there's another B1 district which is out on Route 199. And so any changes that we make to the B1 would also affect the B1 district out on 199. So instead, what is proposed is to create a brand new district called the Hamlet Business, or HB district. And you can see that in the map on the right. You can see that the outline of the district is identical to the B1 district. There was quite a bit of discussion about whether to change the outline of the district, to take some properties out, put them in different districts and so on. And it was decided in the end to keep the district as it is, but to rename it and to include some additional standards for that district. As Robert mentioned, the concern with the B1 district that's been expressed to the town has to do with the scale of the uses that are permitted up in that area. And so that's particularly what we've been looking at, is the scale of the uses and the setbacks and that sort of thing. So I think we can go to the next slide. This gives you an outline of some of the purposes of the district. You can see it's to provide small-scale retail, service, office, and lodging uses primarily, to promote a site layout and a building design and size that's compatible with the character and scale of the historic hamlet of Upper Red Hook, to try to limit curb cuts in this area of Route 9 by encouraging shared driveways and vehicular linkages. Curb cuts on a busy state road, there's about 7,000 vehicles per day on this stretch of Route 9, and when you have a lot of curb cuts with traffic, a lot of traffic traveling at relatively high speed, it can become a traffic hazard, so we try to limit curb cuts as much as we can in those areas. And also to buffer commercial uses from adjacent residential properties with attractive landscaping. As I mentioned, the properties on the east side of Route 9 are relatively shallow in the B1 district, so they back up quite closely to the residential properties in the Hamlet district. And the properties, there are also on the west side of the road a number of single-family residences within the B1 district itself. So those are sort of some of the primary purposes of that district. Okay. These are some, oh sorry, that's a little bit crunched together there, but these are some examples of uses that are currently allowed in the B1 that are proposed to be no longer permitted. And you can see that some of these uses are larger scale uses, a shopping center or a movie theater, an office park and so on. An automobile service facility or a rental, sales rental would require, a relatively extensive land area for parking of vehicles. Some of the uses are also a little bit noisier than other uses. A fire station, for example, a bar, tavern, or nightclub. So it's proposed to delete some of those uses from the HB district. Okay. Some of the uses that would be permitted include personal service use, restaurant, retail, lodging. They propose a cap of a maximum of 25 rooms on a lodging facility, consistent with some of the other districts. Business or professional office and so on. They're also considering a small theater for performing arts. Right now there are only large theaters. In the zoning, this would be for a maximum of 100 seats. Farmers market, grocery store, and so on. These are just some examples of some of the uses that would be allowed. Okay?
Maybe okay, maybe not. There we go.
Key changes, I hope you can read that all right, it's a little small, but key changes to the area of bulk standards. As I mentioned, on the right side or the east side of the road, some of the lots are relatively shallow there. There is a requirement in the town's site plan regulations that states that parking should be located to the side or rear of a building. It's difficult to do that if you're required to have the building setback 80 feet from the road. It leaves very little room on the lot for parking other than in front of the building. And so the proposal is to reduce the setback for the front yard from 80 to 40 feet on the east side of the road, or east side of Route 9 to allow parking to the side and rear of the building. But you'll notice if you've driven up that way that on the west side or the left side, if you're going north of the road of Route 9, the majority of buildings in that part of the B1 district are set back further from the road, up on a ridge. And primarily, they're all around 100, 120, 140 feet from the road. So the proposal is to increase the front yard setback from 80 feet to 100 feet on the west side, consistent with the majority of the existing development there. It's proposed to increase minimum open space requirement from 40% to 50%. And it's also proposed that there be a maximum building footprint for new construction of 2,500 square feet. This is to address the scale issue. Bear in mind that this is still a business district, and in the business districts in the town, more than one principal building or use is permitted. It's unlike in the residential districts, you're only allowed a single principal use. In the business districts, you can have more than one principal use of principal building. So someone could have a number of buildings on a property, but each new building would be limited in size to 2,500 square feet. Okay, that's all on everything on the formula business. Now we turn to, I'm sorry, on the HB district. Now we turn to the formula businesses. And in August of 2016, the Intermunicipal Task Force prepared a special report on formula businesses, or also known as franchises or chain stores, chain businesses, those kinds of things. And I'm going to, if you want to scroll up a bit, I thought I would just, I don't want to summarize the entire report, but it's quite lengthy. It is on the town's website, on the front page there, the home page. But if you can scroll up so we can read all the...
Did you want to explain the photos first?
Well, you
before
can
I
see the
pass?
photos on the photo on the left is a pedestrian-oriented shopping area similar to the village of Red Hook and the new TNDCC and so on, with local businesses. And the one on the right is obviously a more array of formula businesses. And there are two quotes that I wanted to point out to you from the report. There we go.
Does that work?
It primarily looked at community character and tourism revenue. It also had some discussion of economic impacts too. But the one on community character that I wanted to highlight for you talks about that a formula business, by definition of being standardized and uniform in character, can transform a distinctive community into the sameness of any place USA. Goes on to say, while the interest of a community may be to define and enhance its local identity and unique sense of place, the interest of corporations is to produce an instantly recognizable image with trademark building styles and colors. This can result in a conflict between marketing interests and community values. So that's the issue with regards to community character. In terms of tourism, the report includes a quote from Edward T. McMahon. He's with the Urban Land Institute, and he's written extensively on the impacts of community appearance and tourism. I would encourage you to take a look at some of his articles that are up on the internet. His writing is quite compelling, and he's spoken all over the country on this topic. He's spoken in Red Hook a couple of times as well. And he talks about how the more a community enhances its unique assets, the more tourists it will attract. On the other hand, the more it comes to resemble any place USA, the less reason it will be to visit. So he talks about the importance of making a destination more appealing so people will stay longer and spend more. I learned a couple of months ago that the Hudson Valley, according to the Dutchess Tourism, is actually one of the 10 top tourism destinations in the world. So there is some validity, I think, to encouraging tourism in town. Okay. This is a report that the task force also reviewed. I don't think we quite have it all there, but this is information that comes from a report prepared by the Cape Cod Commission, which is a regional planning commission in Cape Cod, and they have studied the impacts of, they summarized studies that were done in other parts of the country, the impacts of locally owned businesses and formula businesses. And they found that local stores have a return as much as 3 times larger than chain stores to the community, because the money is being spent locally and circulating back into the community again. So those were that was a summary of some studies that they had analyzed in Illinois, Maine, and Texas. Okay. And that study by the Cod Commission, it was called a Report on Chain Stores, 2010. They found that local businesses had a greater positive impact than chain stores on economic growth, job quality, local tax revenue, and community character. Okay. Now, the report also looked at drive-through businesses. The town is trying to promote walkable neighborhoods, walkable business districts. The challenge with the drive-through business is the need for stacking lanes for people to order and pick up their orders from the business. It's not like standing at Dell's, there's just a few people in the line, but when you're in your car, it requires quite a bit of area for stacking the vehicles. And this can either result in buildings being set back from the sidewalk at a great depth so that the cars can stack up before they get to it, or if the building is close to the sidewalk, it results in stacking lanes winding around the building so that the drive-through window is on the far side of the building, and either exiting the road from that area, creating 2 curb cuts in the sidewalk, or else coming in front of the building and exiting out of the primary access, but then creating a road essentially that pedestrians have to cross in order to be able to get from the sidewalk to the building. So it's very, very challenging to incorporate drive-through businesses into walkable commercial districts. It can be done, but it's very, very difficult. So that is part of the problem with it creates a conflict with the walkability of the neighborhood. And that was one of the things that they discovered in this report. So based on that report, the local law proposes to prohibit drive-through and formula businesses in the town. And I've included there the definition for formula business for you because that's very important. What do we mean by formula business? So it's a business that has 20 or more other contractual or franchise businesses in the U.S. with the same primary business name, trademark, and logo, and has 2 or more of the following, okay? So it has to meet all of these criteria to be classified as a formula business. It's not just that there's 20 or more. It's 20 or more, and it has 2 of the 3 of things listed here: distinctive architecture, signage, standardized uniforms, or an array of standardized services and merchandise. And the 20 was chosen because it would exempt a majority of the local and regional chains that are operating in the area. So that's why they chose 20. This would not, by the way, it would specifically, agricultural support businesses would be explicitly excluded from the definition of a formula business, and there is a definition of that in the proposed local law. So businesses such as equipment, farm equipment, tools, sale and rental, leasing, repair, tack shops, feed stores, those kinds of businesses would not be included as formula businesses. And existing businesses, of course, would be able to continue as a lawful non-conforming use. And last, the board also has looked at the special permitted uses in the traditional neighborhood district, what is called traditional neighborhood district commercial center. There are a list of 4 special permitted uses in that district, which are automobile oriented, and the board feels that they are not. That they conflict with the intent of the district to promote pedestrian activity and walkability, and so they are proposing to delete those 4 special permitted uses from the TNDCC. Okay, so that's an overview and an introduction to the local law. There will be many opportunities to comment on it to the board. There will be public hearings and so on. But I just wanted to introduce the public and the board, and I'm going to be looking at this for a while, to the main features of that local law.
Thank you. That's good.
Thank you, Michelle. Very nice job. And I'm assuming you'd be okay if we put this on the website, your presentation?
sure.
Okay. So folks can see it if you're at home. If you would like to see it, we'll create a link to the website, and we'll have that done by the time you see this meeting aired as well. It would be great, I mean, if we thought to maybe, I don't know, sometime in the future, say 2 meetings from now, if we set a public hearing to start getting some public feedback from the public, and they can take a look at the handouts and the law itself. I'm thinking, you know, perhaps something the May 8th meeting, if we wanted to hear from the public, and we can continue public hearings and get their input and hear from the planning board. Any thoughts on that? Bill,
So-
Christine, May 8th?
Yeah, I
2
would,
meetings from now?
I would propose that, sure.
And that's, I'm just trying to think, because the planning board would definitely have meetings before that, so yes, they could just act as by then.
Yeah, we could get their input and most importantly, get the public's input.
Yep.
May 8th, does that
Yeah,
make sense?
It's good to me.
May 8th?
That's our next regular meeting.
That's two.
2 meetings
Two
from now,
meetings- two
and this
meetings
way we
down
can
the
get
road.
the word out to as many people as possible, so that they can take a look at the law, the presentation, and get some input, and we can make whatever changes we want to in the future, but we can get it out there and publicize it and get some input. Any thoughts about that, Sarah?
I think it's a good idea, but I think we should let them know how to comment now before the public hearing if they have thoughts. Don't you
Yes.
think if,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
if enough comments came forward before then we could even, you know, look at revisions before we even get to the public hearing,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Terrific, yeah, absolutely.
so how would people best
So
comment?
folks, if you would like to comment, you can send an email both to the town clerk, that's smccann, smccann@redhook.org. You can also CC me if you like, and we'll get it distributed to the town board for their review. It's rmccann@redhook.org. And if you forget the contact information, you just go on the town website and you can get any of our contact information that's available, and we'll share that with the board for their consideration.
Are we going to discuss it before setting the public hearing? Because I mean, we might have revisions now that we could talk about before even setting one on this draft. Since we haven't really discussed it as a board yet
Okay,
in a meeting.
okay, would you have some suggestions
I have
you'd
some.
like to make? Okay,
Sure. Does anybody else? I don't know. Okay.
all right.
Sure, I'll go. Okay, one of my questions is, why would food trucks not be permitted in our new HB district? Because it seems like a spot that would be good for food trucks. Do you have an answer, or?
I don't, but I think, I mean, it is being proposed to be permitted in the B1 district, and it might just be that people have overlooked, you know, you
Because it
wouldn't
doesn't
sleep at
exist
first,
yet.
it hadn't
Right.
existed yet, so
Okay,
I think that's a board decision, but I'm happy to change it if you feel that that would be appropriate.
okay, so that's
As a
one.
possibility in the HB? Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. What do you all think? Should we amend the use table now that there may be a creation of HB?
Well,
Use table?
Well, let's think about it. This is the first time somebody has suggested it.
Okay.
What else, Sarah?
well, in the HB district, and just to talk about that, it talks about, looking at this, right? If I'm on the right page. So it's like 11, is that the right page, Michelle?
Are you looking at the use table?
I think so. Well, no, I'm trying to find the sort of intent part.
Oh, the intent.
You know, the HB district is intended to accommodate a mix of small scales and commercial uses consisting of retail, office, lodging, and personal services in the immediate vicinity of the hamlet of Upper Red Hook. So that's at the bottom of page 11, so is that in the right place?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I've always thought, I'll just insert my idea here also, that actually the intent should include mention of the highway, because that's sort of the elephant in the room there for that district, even though we want to talk about it as adjacent to the hamlet, and it is, and this is part of our intent, is to make sure that it is compatible with the hamlet. It is also on a state road, and a very busy one, as Michelle pointed out, so I don't see why it makes sense to only talk about it being compatible with the hamlet when we should also think of it as, it is still a highway business district, even though we're
It's
trying
not
to
a-
change the,
It's not a highway business district, it's a hamlet business district.
I know, but I mean, it's a business district on a highway.
It's on a highway, and I think it can be, with trucks parked there, it could be 5 feet from the road. That could be
Yeah, so I-
quite a problem.
So I just think, we probably need to discuss whether we wanna have food trucks in that area based on this intent statement and that issue of the highway, so.
Okay, so it sounds like people want more time to consider that
Right.
as a modification, okay. And yeah, just for clarification, the district used to be called Highway Business many years ago. It's been a business district for, I don't know how many decades, but I think we're trying to take into account the surrounding area as well.
Could we,
Right, any other,
we could make like an asterisk that says like, except in the Hamlet Business District, it needs to have a setback of something else, right, than 5 feet,
You could do that.
right? You could say 25 feet or whatever we think is appropriate.
Okay,
For food
Let's-
trucks?
Yeah.
let's consider that. It sounds like we need more time to.
Yeah, no, I'm just throwing that
Right,
out there, I'm just
okay.
trying to present the options here.
Okay,
Okay, my other thought is that, it seems like with food trucks, a lot of the time, there's signage on the vehicle itself, and then there's signage, like maybe a board, but there's also sometimes like a sign near the road. And I know, we've talked about how they're permitted to be close to the road, so that that's like, they're sort of their own advertisement. For example, Bubby's is right there, it's kind of hard to miss. But I could see some situations where you might want a sign either at the front of the lot somewhere, kind of pointing people, hey, this way is the food truck, or, so I'm just throwing that out there. Should we allow some kind of configuration of the signage so that that might be a possibility, or, that was a
that's,
thought.
yeah, there is language about what signage is allowed for
Right.
food trucks in here.
Yeah, there's two signs allowed, one is an
Yeah.
identification sign and one is like a menu board.
Yeah, but weren't they both supposed to be like on
I think
the
one is
truck?
affixed to the truck, the menu board, it doesn't specify.
It doesn't
Work.
right, but the menu board wouldn't be the one that would be out on the roadside,
No.
right?
So maybe
that's
we
what I'm
need to
saying.
just clarify the language so that, just two signs are allowed and let them put on them what they want. So if they want to have one affixed to the truck, that's the menu board. If they wanted to have one located somewhere else, they could do the
Well,
identification.
Michelle, I think, so you're saying you would then all of a sudden have a freestanding sign advertising the business?
Well, there's nothing in here that says the one exterior menu board, it doesn't specify that that actually has to be attached to the truck.
Right.
Another way to approach it would be to say that if for food trucks that are set back further than a certain distance from the road, they would be allowed an additional directional sign, additional identity sign. So if they were, if they were set back, I don't know, 40, I don't know what the distance is, but further from the road, then they would be allowed,
We had a lot of concerns about having too many signs.
Yeah.
I know.
I think we should be
Yeah.
very careful about what we propose
I'm just
there.
throwing out different ideas that we can do.
Yeah.
I agree with
I
Karen
think
too.
so,
I'd like
you're
to
right,
take
yeah.
some time to think about that, especially since those signs are gonna be in many cases near or in the right of way and may pose some traffic issues or sight distance issues, and we'll have to cover that as well, but duly noted, as they say, Sarah.
Yeah, so the other thought I had about signage was that I know there's a restriction on the size, and I just wondered, I think in your pictorial example and in real life examples I can think of, a lot of times the menu is just like painted all over the truck, So I'm just wondering like what happens with somebody who rolls into town and wants to do their food truck and their sign on their truck that's painted on or is like affixed on the truck is like larger than the 6 square feet. And so I'm wondering like what was the thinking behind 6 square feet, and why not say something like, it has to be proportional to the size of the vehicle, or it has, I don't know, or if it's painted on, we're not gonna restrict the size, because we haven't restricted the look of the vehicle in any other way that I see in here. So I'm just wondering about that.
I think our sign ordinance actually covers this.
Okay.
Because there are many different types of signs, and one of the things that we did speak about is tackling someday soon our zoning with regards to signage, because it's very outdated. We have huge sign dimensions in certain cases where we allow 24 square feet of signage, which is, nowadays, not only out of scale, but perhaps even not necessary, given the fact that people tend to know where things are a little better with modern technology, but
So how does the current sign law address?
it speaks
the food
to,
truck issue?
yeah.
It's
it-
actually tied to the frontage of your property, so that does put smaller sized properties at a disadvantage in terms of signage.
But there's also a definition of the area of the sign, so if the sign is not actually on a defined, piece of wood or something,
Right, right.
material, that you draw a rectangle around the area of the language itself. So there is a way of measuring sign area already in the sign.
The
But don't
food
you
truck
think food
signage.
trucks are sort of a different case since they're kind of a temporary structure and also they're, like you're saying with the road frontage issue, these people are potentially moving around, so they're in one lot one day, they're in another lot another day. Another issue is that they're not affixed to that property, so I don't know, I'm just,
Well, just
I do
bear
think
in mind there's a seasonal, I'm sorry to interrupt, a seasonal permit of 9 months.
Sure,
So that's
yeah.
pretty darn close to permanent. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think we wanna be careful that we make it clear and limit the subjective
Yeah,
interpretation
absolutely,
ability
yeah.
so that
Right.
the permit issuing is very straightforward and clear.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and that's why I guess I'm thinking, I don't know, to me, food trucks are a special case, again, in the sense that often they have things painted on the vehicle. And we haven't put anything in here that specifies that you can't do that, or, so,
Look at our sign ordinance and you'll see the language there. I apologize, I don't have it up in front of me right now, but it covers, the sign is not just simply a sign. Illustrations oftentimes on buildings and so on and so forth are covered by your sign ordinance.
In the discussions, previous discussions, we were concerned, and I share that concern, that they be small as possible, and yet get the message across on the food truck. And therefore, there would be one sign attached that would essentially have a menu, and then we assume that people would use a menu. And then there would be another sign that perhaps could be on the road saying, Erdy is 5 feet away with his food truck.
okay, so I'll just state my opinion, which is that I think we should make an exception for food trucks, and that I think part of the draw of food trucks is that they're unique and interesting, and in terms of look and signage, and that we should make an exception, so that's my opinion.
So if I understand what you're saying, so let's just say that the truck says it's, XYZ potatoes, right, is what and what Michelle is saying, that in the zoning right now, there's a way to measure around that for the actual sign part of XYZ potatoes, which could be the painted on the vehicle. Right. And then, so that would be addressed on, signage shall be limited to a single sign, not greater than 6 feet in area. So that could be painted on or affixed to the food truck. So that could be addressing that part of it.
Right.
And then you also get to have a menu board not greater than 6 square feet, which, as Michelle pointed out, is not specified whether that has to be affixed to the vehicle. So if you have that painted on your vehicle,
Right.
that could still get measured there. Or if you wanted a separate one, that could be a sandwich board or something,
Right,
or something leaning up against your truck.
right.
So I guess I'm wondering, I guess part of the issue might be if XYZ potatoes is painted on both sides of the truck, right? Are we only looking at the side that faces the road to count that? So that might be more of a
What about the
clarification issue.
dancing potatoes that are painted all over the truck? That's your
Right.
point.
Yeah, I mean, there might be dancing potatoes painted all over the truck with their logo, is that signage?
Yeah.
What about
Yes.
that
There would be
Mr.
signs that had the
Dingling,
logo, but if it was just dancing potatoes, that's just
That's
dancing potatoes.
That's just illustration.
I mean, the
of
Mr.
art.
Dingling truck that has, the whole side of the truck basically is covered in pictures of ice cream with the prices, and I'm just saying,
That's your menu board.
that's your mini board, sure, but is there a size restriction on, there's a size
6
restriction on
square
that
feet.
also, right? And I'm
6
just
square feet.
saying, why make it 6 square feet? Why not say it can't extend beyond the borders of your truck? Or why not say, I don't know, you know what I mean, that's what
I-
I'm saying.
I can give you
Yeah.
one reason why it shouldn't, is because the truck is able to be 35 feet long. And a 35-foot sign that is visible in our community would be, potentially.
Yeah, but we've already
significant
restricted the size of the lettering, right?
impact.
In the menu. I'm talking about menus specifically, okay? I'm not talking about
We didn't restrict the size of the lettering, just the size of the board.
Yeah.
the size, we didn't
6
restrict.
square
The
feet.
overall size of the sign.
I guess I'm just saying, okay, I grant you that like maybe we don't want a 35-foot, but I'm saying let's make it proportional to the truck or in some way.
I think that was Christine's point though, is that if you start doing 20% of the truck, you're gonna have somebody go,
Yeah.
it's too hard to.
I just don't wanna make
Yeah.
it too difficult for our
No,
folks
I
to have to
hear what you're
deal
saying.
with,
I just
right?
think the way we have it right now is a little bit too arbitrary. And then we're gonna end up with like a truck from, some place and we have a food truck festival or something. They're only coming for a temporary, I'm not talking about the permanent ones, okay? Like the ones that live here, they ought to know what our law is and be able to abide by it, of course, and plan ahead, whatever. But we also have a 3-day permit and somebody comes from Hyde Park or whatever and they have a sign that exceeds 6 feet. What are we gonna do?
Okay,
That's what I'm asking.
all right,
So
so
But
let's,
I'll just finish up before you move on, because I
Yeah,
can hear
yeah.
you wanting us to move on.
no, that's fine.
Is, having dealt with many years with not clear
Yeah.
language at the planning board, that I would just say, the clearer and we can be, the better it is for the implementation or enforcement of the
So what if we
regulations.
just, so I guess I'm just saying, like, what if we think about
Yeah.
something that's like,
Okay,
for sure it shouldn't exceed the limits of the truck, and I hear you on the 35-foot long thing, so I don't know how we limit that, I just think 6 square feet to me feels a little arbitrary.
Well, there is
So,
a variance procedure
Okay,
that people
Bear in
could
mind
use.
too, that we wanted to keep it so that it was just a simple permit given by
Right.
the zoning enforcement officer.
Exactly.
And so the cleaner and the they're not really permitted to
Sure.
do take discretionary action. So it
Totally.
really has to be very clear and
Because, again, people want to.
I think smaller is better.
And they'll interpret
I'll say
differently,
it
and then
again.
all of a sudden it's a big
Yeah, no.
involved
it
process.
should be very
so-
clear, I'm not trying to say it shouldn't,
Okay.
I'm just,
I got that note, signage on temporary
Okay.
trucks.
And the signage on the truck is totally different than the signage on fixed properties.
right. Okay, in the Hamlet Business District, I'm wondering why multifamily dwellings are allowed when we're not allowing single-family dwellings. And I'm wondering why we don't allow day camps, community residences, and commercial nurseries. So those, is it too big?
What was the second one?
Day camp, community residence, and commercial nursery were the other 3.
Yeah.
I could maybe attempt a couple of those. Commercial nurseries are really intensive uses. If you've been to a commercial nursery, probably the most common sound you hear is the beeping when they're going backwards with the equipment. And I think the idea is to, again, try to be sensitive to the area landowners. And so that type of use to me seems to be inconsistent. Multifamily dwellings, why are they allowed? I think the idea was that there were some structures there within the district that for adaptive reuse would lend themselves to multifamily dwellings. Anybody else want to take a crack at?
Are you talking about
Plus that's-
nurseries
that's a special
as in,
permitted use.
as in plants or as kids?
No, as in plants, as in trees,
All
as
the
in,
only dwellings
you
are
know.
special permit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm wondering like, well, why not a community residence if we're allowing multifamily dwellings?
Why not a community? Say
Does it
again?
say it's
A community
specifically,
residence.
does it say it's specifically prohibited?
Yeah.
Where is that?
I don't know if
In
you
the
can
use
distinguish the
table?
two.
The truth
What-
is
what
that
page are you on?
we focus primarily on the commercial uses, so
Oh,
the
use.
the uses for most of the residential
page-
uses for the HB are the same as in the B1 because there was.
Yeah.
First page of the use
I'm
table.
sorry, Michelle, they were struggling to find the spot, could you just repeat that?
Repeat what I just said?
What you just said,
Well,
yeah,
we,
a little louder.
I believe the board was focusing more on the commercial uses in the district. And so the principal, you know, the residential uses are, you know, as you look down, they're almost identical to the B1.
Right.
I think if you allow too many different types of residential uses in the business district, then you may create land use conflicts that discourages development of commercial uses in that district. So that's why, you know, new construction of single family is not allowed
Sure.
in either the B1 or the HB.
Yeah, no, and I get that. I'm just wondering, to me, a community residence is very similar to multifamily dwelling in terms of the traffic and,
Doesn't a community residence have employees as well as residents for community residence?
New York State has community residences hither and yon.
Wherever they want.
And they'll have a number of bedrooms, convert many of the rooms to bedrooms, and then some of them will have a full-time staff.
Yeah.
And some of them do not.
Yeah.
But they're staffed as well.
Yeah, I remember we had one, I think up in last year, wasn't that one in last year that had a lot of individuals, employees and
Well, that's not a good example.
We had one on
That-
9.
the 9,
Yeah.
it
Okay.
seems like on a state highway, something like that is compatible, so that's why I wondered. And the day camp, anybody have thoughts on that? Thinking properties like the
Well,
church
give
one,
us
for
the whole
example.
sentence on day camp, just correct what you're saying.
I'm sorry?
What are you saying about day camp?
Why aren't they allowed
Okay, the HB?
in the HB?
I think they're,
I'd be concerned about safety and traffic.
Yeah, I know.
When you have a lot of little kids there.
I think they're small parcels. I would be concerned about the impact on neighbors.
What about like the church though, for example?
Oh, it's there.
I mean, a day camp is regulated by the state, so, you know, the state's going to be looking at the traffic and the safety issues and the size of the parcel and all that will be regulated by the state, so.
All right, well, so we can think about it.
All right,
Can't figure it out tonight.
right, all right, well,
I expected answers to everything tonight.
okay,
Give them
good.
to me.
Sarah, we've got your list, we've got 5.
Okay, great,
One
okay.
more?
The answer is no to each one.
I think we're good. On the definition, I just want to clarify from Chris Shaw that something like a true value or an agway will still be outside of our definition of a formula business at this point.
Well, I think I'm gonna have to talk to, I'm gonna have to review that because I wasn't part of this draft, so I'm not as familiar with text as Victoria and
True value
Michelle are.
would not be allowed with the verbiage that's here.
Are you saying
Oh,
because
actually.
it could be considered an agricultural support business? Is that a question?
No,
It
I
is.
mean, I am wondering about that, but I don't think it's really a ag support business. I'm thinking more because the way the definition is worded, you know, anything that has like a logo, it's common, right, among more than 20, kind of uniform and merchandise, all that stuff, and a name. But I'm trying to think, like I know with Agway, a lot of times the different Agways will be like ours is Max Farm
That's right.
and Farm and Garden or whatever it's called. What is it?
Yes,
Max
it's
what?
Max Agway.
Right, it's Max Agway, so he's got the Agway logo, but it's a different primary name.
It is,
So that's okay.
But
That's
also-
why, Harry, if I could just clarify, yes, that's exactly why the language reads that
Yeah.
way for the definition is the
Right.
primary name, so.
No, I know, so I'm just trying to confirm though with True Value, for example, or Williams.
It's a Williams Ace store,
It's a
so
Williams
you would
Ace
look at
store,
the number
so-
of Williams
right.
out there to see whether or not it met or did
Yeah.
not meet the definition. And Agway is very much an agricultural support business.
Well, yeah, I'm not worried about Agway that way.
You have to be careful how that's worded. Agway and Williams has products with ACE on, but most of what you buy there is an ACE product
Right.
with a label on it. And in Agway, it's also similar.
Yeah, and
that
so
they
that's
have
why I'm
their own-
bringing it up
their own-
because-
Their own product.
Actually, it's not, I discussed this law with Gary at Max Agway, the owner, who by the way is supportive of this, and they do not have uniform Agway used to be a national company. It no longer exists that way. And they don't have standardized goods anymore, and they don't have standardized.
They have a lot, but,
all
and
that.
that's maybe one of the things we want to consider in the formula, because there are many stores that are privately owned and local, but they have a preponderance of the one common label.
But as long as they have a different primary name, they're okay. So for example, Keels, which sells John Deere and has the John Deere logo prominently displayed, would be okay because there's not more than 20 Keels,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
Or
And then-
Conway's is another
That's exactly
example where
right.
they have
And
the
they
steel
sell
logo very
exactly
prominently
the same
displayed, but
steel,
it's
they
not a
sell
chain
steel.
store because it's a Conway's.
So if a
Well, because
McDonald's,
they choose what product lines they want to carry.
That's right.
Yeah, but I'm
They're
saying
not
just,
licensed by Steel, for instance.
yeah, but I'm
right?
just saying
So-
according to the definition, part of it is the primary name. And that's why I'm wondering about True Value, some of
but
these other ones.
McDonald's are locally owned. And
Yeah, but
most
the
of
primary
Does not go to
name and all the rest of them count.
So if somebody puts the name Charlie Brown's
Harry
McDonald's,
Colgan's McDonald's.
Well, good
that'll
luck.
be the day.
Good luck, yes. Let us know how you make out with the McDonald's Corporation with that.
What color would you make the arches?
Right.
Oh,
All
how
right.
about green?
All right, before we go ahead and set that public hearing to get more input from the folks on May 8th at 7:35, we have a resolution. We need to just look at our EAF Part 1.
Sorry, but are we seeing a public hearing on this current draft?
Yes, we are.
That I just proposed changes to?
Yes, because I think you got a lot of wheel considerates from your fellow town board
Well, why
members.
couldn't we wait and then set a public hearing on a different draft if we decide to go forward?
We can amend it.
Well, why can't we just get all of the public
Yeah.
comments at one time?
We wanna get them
all
Wouldn't that
in.
be more efficient?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be good to get everybody's ideas together and see how we would like to amend this proposal. I agree with Christine. So
How do you wanna
if
attack
the
this?
consensus at least is to go forward and get more public input, maybe tackle the EAF Part 1?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so project sponsor, we knew that's the town board of the town of Red Hook. The proposed action is the adoption of a local law to amend the code to establish a new chapter 79 to be known as food trucks and to amend chapter 43 entitled zoning.
143.
Did I say 43? 143 entitled zoning to prohibit drive-through businesses and formula businesses, to rezone the B1 district in Upper Red Hook as a hamlet business district, to amend the uses in various districts to include food trucks, to amend the TNDCC sub-district to delete the special permitted uses and to amend the area and bulk tables to include provisions for the HB district. The amendments are designed to protect the health, safety, and welfare of town residents and to bring the town zoning law into conformance with the Greenway Connections Greenway Compact Program and guides for Dutchess County communities pursuant to Chapter 17 of the Town Code. The proposed amendments are consistent with the recommendations of the town's comprehensive plan, sponsor being the town board. And you've had a chance to look at this EAF for some time. Was there any questions about it? It goes over Section B, the government approvals. We know that we would need advisory opinions, the planning and zoning actions will need to be granted in Section C. It talks about the districts in C3 zoning, and who services those districts. The project details, obviously it is not a project, the proposal is a legislative change.
This points out one of the issues that's been getting a more and more of a hot button to me, and that's that we are putting a basket of laws into one action. And it seems to me these laws have the right to be separate and should be considered separately as individual laws rather than not four in one.
Okay.
And I object to the idea voting for 4 laws with a single vote.
Copies. Okay, thank you, Harry. I would take the opposite view, which is that these are all commercial uses, and the legislation is very consistent. It's to try to guide commercial uses so that they are more compatible with the goals and vision of the districts that were created. And so, Michelle, how did I do with that? Did I say
No,
that
I mean, I
correctly?
think there was certainly a common theme amongst them all. They're all addressed, concerned with commercial uses in the business districts, so.
Right. Okay. So that's the part 1, full EAF, and our attorney is making copies of a resolution, a draft resolution.
Do we have to look at the coastal management one? We could do that while we're reading.
We can take a look at the coastal assessment form. Thank you, Chris. We did have a CAF here, Michelle.
Yeah, there should be a cap increase there.
There is a cap behind the EAF.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Oh, I don't have it in my
Yeah,
copy.
here.
So. Thank you. I don't know why I wasn't in my copy. I've reviewed it. I've had this for quite some time now. So again, the description of the proposed action is the same. Location of the action is Town of Red Hook, Dutchess County. And it talks about whether there's development on a beach, dune, barrier, island, all places that we'd like to be at this point. No, it's not. Will it be located in the local waterfront revitalization program area? And of course, yes, it will. We have an adopted LWRP. This was prepared by our planner, dated March 28th, 2018. And the proposed actions be located in or contiguous to or have a significant effect upon any of the resource areas. And wildlife, fish, agricultural lands, recreational use of fish, so on and so forth. Are there any potential yes answers on this coastal assessment list that you came up with when you reviewed it? I don't see any. None? Okay. So then we are, it sounds like you need to do resolution number, what's it?
Next one is 19.
19? Okay. That would be dated tonight, April 10th, 2018. It's a resolution classifying the action and establishing lead agency type 1 action.
So moved.
Oh, well, that's quick. But essentially it would be acknowledging that we've reviewed the assessment form, environmental assessment form, and that we've reviewed the thresholds for type 1 and type 2 actions, and that we've determined that there are no other involved agencies, both local and federal. And so the town board hereby declares itself lead agency, and we have a motion by Christine Kane and a second by Bill O'Neill, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
No, I just think that we should have, as a board, we haven't discussed this in a previous meeting, and I think that as such a large piece of legislation, we really should have discussed it and entertained changes by board members before moving to this step of the process.
Okay, thanks.
Before the secret
I would
process?
agree with that.
Well, we're reviewing the law for seeker as it's written right now, right?
Well, you're just initiating,
Just
just
initiating.
initiating.
We're just
You don't need to
initiating
review
the-
it.
Right, you're not
That's all.
making a secret determination tonight,
Okay.
you are typing the action as a type 1 action.
Right.
And just initiating.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and thank you. And we did note some suggestions. If you remember, we've had this, it's been worked on for a while and continued we worked on recently and.
But it hasn't been worked on in public, sorry, Robert, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna correct you
Okay.
there.
But the
That we haven't-
resolution is only, that's on the floor now, is only for the seeker.
Yeah, no, I get it, I'm just
Okay.
saying that, because I'm gonna say it a lot.
Okay, all right, very
But
good.
but the process is cramming it through.
Nobody's
We
crying.
have to
We're
have a
just-
seeker review of it no matter what we do,
Right.
so.
And we're just trying to solicit
understand
public
that.
input at this point. It has no, starting the public input is what I think is on the table for this evening. All right, so that was the resolution.
For the lead
establishing
agency.
Lead agency. And then we have,
We didn't
think
vote
we
on
didn't
it
vote
yet.
on
I'm
that.
sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All right, and then there is a resolution somewhere. Oh, why my packet doesn't have the things it should. It would be resolution number 20 dated April 10th of 2018. It's establishing a date for a public hearing so that we can get public input so people can take a look at this draft law. At 7:30 on May 8th has been suggested.
Should we make it like 7:35?
So, I'm sorry, 7:35. And we can continue the public hearing as much as we need to. Moving forward, this just gets it out there in the public and allows them the opportunity to speak to this topic.
And I would just say though that it's already out to the public and it can be out without having a public hearing. And sometimes the only way the public can really access a document, especially like this one, which is very, very complicated, is to witness the board discussing it and discussing the pros and cons and suggesting changes and having a presentation by a planner and all those things. And then it's, you know, we haven't had any public comment process tonight since we discussed it a little bit. There's been no opportunity for board members to express their opinions about it in a public meeting or make changes to the draft in public. We have had a draft of it for a while. So I would just say, I think in the past, we've often done it that way. That's usually the way it works, that we discuss laws like this in public before we set a public hearing, with time for the public to weigh in before we even set one. It does cost money if we renotice it. So if we, you know, if we do make changes based on public comments or my comments or anybody else's comments, then we're going to have to renotice it and reset a public hearing. And those are all barriers to making changes, so I'm not in favor of setting a public hearing this time.
Okay, thanks.
So move.
All right, and then just to note before the motion, I did solicit at the last meeting if anybody had suggested changes to pre-submit them. No suggested changes were submitted until this evening. And I don't hear any suggested changes coming otherwise.
Did we discuss
Well,
a
I
draft
think
of
we
it at
need,
that
I
meeting?
think we need time to think about what Sarah's
Right,
suggestions are,
exactly.
and if we get any others in.
Exactly.
But did we discuss this at our last meeting?
We have discussed it briefly at our last meeting. We've had a presentation of it.
And the draft changed since then.
Tiny cross-reference changes, yep, that is true. All right, we have a motion by Bill O'Neill to set the public hearing for May 8th at 7:35. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Nay? All right. Public hearing?
I'll say no too, because I think we're moving too fast.
Okay, well, we can certainly slow it down, we're just soliciting public input. So that's May 8th, 7:35. We'll make this presentation available to you, and we would like your input. I think we've described how you can send your input to us, and any recommended changes. Yeah, Michelle?
If you are seeking input into the local law, do you want to consider forwarding it to county planning and to the
Exactly.
planning board for comments?
Exactly right, yes. We would want to get the comments from both our local planning board and county planning as well between now and then. And so I would suggest we move to refer this draft to them for their consideration. I know.
Do we
Yep.
need to actually do that in our resolution?
Yeah, we
It
should.
is actually in the resolution.
It's
It
in the
is in the
Oh, is it?
resolution.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so, very good. Thank you very much, Michelle, thank you very much.
Can I ask a point of information?
Yeah.
Did anybody get any mail that was sent out Thursday in the local area, Upper Red Hook?
Well,
Yeah,
we-
It arrived on Monday?
it came yesterday, yes.
Monday. Is that generally true? You got
Yeah, we might have gotten ours Saturday.
Saturday or Monday?
All right, and thank you all very much. We are going to move on to the next item. Thank you, Michelle, for your presentation.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
The next item,
Excuse me, Chris Roberts to sign this.
I was just gonna ask
Okay.
if you have a signed version of
No, I
it.
don't yet, so.
If you could make sure you do that. Thank you very much.
Signed version of what?
The EAF
Oh,
that you just reviewed.
we're moving on to item number 3. A very quick item. Each year, we have a resolution that we entertain to recognize April as Parkinson Awareness Month. It's been a tradition here in the town of Red Hook, and they have asked us, the Parkinson's Disease Support Group of the Mid-Hudson Valley has asked us to recognize that event. So we have a proclamation, and I'll just summarize it. It's the same proclamation I think we had last
Now,
year.
is this gonna be a resolution though? Yeah, I mean, it says resolution.
It does say resolution, so we will have a motion. I don't believe it's up here.
It says proclamation.
I know that says proclamation, that says resolution.
Well, this is a proclamation.
No, I'm just asking, do you wanna do it as a motion?
Let's do it as a
or-
motion
Yeah,
to
fine.
approve the proclamation,
Yes.
okay?
It's good.
Whereas Parkinson's disease is a progressive neurological movement disorder of the central nervous system which has a unique impact on each patient. And whereas according to the Parkinson's Action Network, the Parkinson's Disease Foundation, the American Parkinson's Disease Association, and the National Institutes of Health, there are over 1 million Americans diagnosed with the disease. Whereas the symptoms include slowness, tremor, difficulty with balance and speaking, rigidity, cognitive and memory problems. And whereas although new medicines and therapies may enhance life for some people with Parkinson's, more work is needed for a cure. And whereas increased education and research are needed to help find more effective treatments with fewer side effects and ultimately a cure for Parkinson's disease. And whereas a multidisciplinary approach to Parkinson's care includes local wellness, support, and caregiver groups. And whereas April has been proclaimed as Worldwide Parkinson's Awareness Month for all to recognize the need for more research and help in dealing with the devastating effects of Parkinson's disease. Now therefore, we, the town board of the town of Red Hook, do hereby proclaim April as Parkinson's Awareness Month in the town of Red Hook. And I would like to move to resolve to once again declare April as Parkinson's Awareness Month. Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And we know many valued residents who have been stricken by that disease, and that's why it's something that's been a tradition here in the town of Red Hook. Okay, item number 4 on the agenda is a resolution recognizing the United Public Service Employees Union. They have requested recognition for a bargaining unit comprised of our full-time and part-time employees in the highway department. And so we have that resolution that we would like to so move to recognize them.
So moved.
All right, and is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We have number 5 on the agenda is, we discussed previously, we need to appoint an engineering firm to review some outstanding issues with the Hoffman project. For those of you who don't know, several years ago, the applicants came in and proposed a 102-unit development next to the movie theater, essentially, over by that area. It's referred to as the Hoffman project because it's owned by Roger Hoffman. And there are still some few town board matters that need to be taken care of with respect to that development before they can be granted plat approval and move forward with that development. And so we discussed the need to assign a firm, and the thinking was that because this firm had the engineer at the time that reviewed it for the planning board, it would best serve not only the town but the applicant to have that same engineer review the district proceedings that need to be created in order to wrap up the review of that project. So T&B Engineering, which is a subsidiary, I guess, of Ty and Bond, has developed and you've seen the scope of services. And so I'm wondering whether you think this would make sense to assign the firm to complete the work.
Have you looked at the fees schedule and all that sort of thing? Are you satisfied with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fees are perhaps a little higher than that other firm that was doing the review, but the work that was done on the project, I mean, the learning curve would be, I think, more than significant. If somebody else were to pick it up. Christine, I would defer to you.
I would think the continuity would be nice,
Right.
from the applicant's point of view, as you're saying, because they would just hit the ground running, having
Right.
already reviewed the project, and then they could just start
Right.
working on it.
Does that make sense, Harry?
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of work left to be done in this context.
Okay.
So there's no point in making any changes at this point.
The developer's gonna want that from you in writing, I'm sure, Harry, now that you've said that.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. That would be resolution, I believe, number 21, is that right?
22.
22 already, we're at number. It's a resolution authorizing an extension to D&B Engineering agreement for professional services to include professional services regarding Hoffman T&B, and this is the traditional neighborhood district we're referring to. And so the resolution is to approve this scope of services which were submitted on March 28th. And who made the motion? I've already
I
forgotten.
did.
Christine,
I did.
thank you. And a second by
Bill O'Neill?
Bill O'Neill. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much. Reorganization, I promised you at the last meeting that we would, in fact, finally start appointing some members to those two committees that are grant funded, the projects that we have. You had the list, that would be the LWRP and Complete Streets. And these individuals have expressed, we can call it a subcommittee, a committee, whatever you prefer, to be a part of those projects. The LWRP, Emily Major, Paula Schoonmaker, Amy Houston from Annandale. These were on the list that you had for quite some time. Ted Fink as our planner, obviously we prepared the grant, and Christine Kane would be a part of that effort, being obviously the planning board chair for many years in both planning boards, the town and the village of Tivoli. And with Complete Streets, Jen Kavanaugh, who has an engineering background, I think would be and has offered to chair that committee. And Roger Husted, it'd be nice to get Roger involved, and is excited about being a part of that committee, he's a bicyclist. Obviously, we want our highway superintendent, Teresa Burke, and integral part of any Complete Streets committee that we would have. Ted Fink again, the planner. and Kat Viega from Trail. So we've got some good representation there. Perhaps we could use even more individuals there. But at least to get it started, and the folks with the LWRP already have their booklets and are ready to go. And I was thinking maybe just one-year appointments for now. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to propose a motion to appoint those individuals to those spots. On Complete Streets, Jen Kavanaugh, Roger Eustace, Teresa Berg, Ted Fink, Kat Viega for a one-year term ending in 2018. I doubt it'll conclude by then, but we do need to get it going. Would somebody like to make that motion?
Well, can I just ask a question?
Good.
Yes, you may.
Since we're already in April,
Yes, you want to make it
do you want to make
2019?
it through 2019?
Okay, make it through 2019, that's fine. Okay, a two-year term then, ending in 2019. Bill, would you amend your motion, please?
Yes.
So moved, okay. And second?
Second,
Second?
Okay,
Sorry.
all right, second by Harry.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. With LWRP, Emily Major, Paula Schoonmaker, Amy Houston, Ted Fink, Kristen King, periods ending 2019. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We need a motion and a second, sorry, I jumped the gun there.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's for reorg. Did we do everything? Okay, discussion highway paving projects.
Can I just ask a question? We have, for months, had inquiry for the Board of Assessment. We need to have another person on
Yes.
the assessment board.
Yes.
And we need training, we just got another letter
Yeah.
about that.
That's correct.
Do we have somebody in mind, or?
I have one person that I've reached out to with no answer yet. If you're interested in the assessment review board, and in particular, somebody, we lost a person with real estate background. So that's what I'm looking at now, is trying to replace that expertise. Somebody who's familiar with the real estate market. We have
And it can be a
resignation.
realtor.
What's that?
It can be a
It
realtor.
can be a realtor, was a realtor. The resignation was Jeff Ackerley, who is moving south. As many of us will be doing if Mother Nature doesn't give
We
us a
are all
break
moving
every now.
south
We are all moving.
until the last few weeks.
Okay.
And just another thing on the appointment list.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
have a couple of groups that
Don't meet.
really have not been active. Can we eliminate these? The Intermunicipal Shared Service Highway Working Group,
Yeah.
that was like since 2009.
Yeah, that's like a temporary thing, right? for
As a
that
temporary
board.
thing, the county wants to keep resuscitating that, and, you know, I think we will end up eliminating it, and just haven't removed it from the list
Okay,
yet.
and then St. Margaret's and,
And St. Margaret's,
Zoning
we're
Review
hoping
Committee
to,
also,
yeah.
Mm.
Zoning Review Committee hasn't met in a while, but
been a
they're,
long time.
they're still, they're still
Things-
all
things
in
come
business.
up.
Yeah. So I don't think we want to eliminate anything yet, but we do,
Oh, because I didn't think they met anymore.
I think you want an off it when things come
it's
up.
been a while though.
They really met in a long time.
Yeah.
If you are interested in joining one of our committees, please, if you'd be willing, go on the town website. We'll post our committee list and show you the vacancies, and let us know if you're interested in joining. We could use your input and your assistance. All right, discussion highway paving projects. We received today some correspondence from our highway superintendent with regard to potentially some proposed roads to be paved for this year. And
I can read those, Robert,
yeah,
for the
yeah,
folks at home.
yeah, I'm just prefacing before you join us, Teresa, and also for next year. So if you would take it away, Teresa, thank you very much.
So the first item is the paving for 2018, and the Highway Department would like to have authorization to go out to bid for paving on Kid Lane, Sangstack Road, and Stony Brook Road, and the widths and lengths are as follows. Kid Lane is 5,755 in length and 20 foot in width. Stack is 3,144 in length and 20 in width. And Stony Brook Road is 4,752 in length and 20 in width. The total length of the project is 2.5 miles. We will be contracting for a 2.5-inch asphalt overlay in order to strengthen and seal the roads, and we will not be changing the widths of the roads. All 3 roads were listed as deficient by the Cornell Pavement Evaluation. Kid Lane, Stack Lane, and Stony Brook are all in the Tivoli area, and by grouping the roads together in the bid, we can save time and money. We will be going out for a sealed bid, and we are preparing the documents for the bid package and advertisement for attorney review. And our intent is to have a resolution and authorization at the next board meeting on April 25th. We will receive the bids back on May 24th, and we will present the expected cost of the project along with an amended 284 agreement at the next town board meeting on June 12th. As we discussed at budget time, the amount may be a little higher than the current funds that we have in our CHIPS and major road budget lines. The town board will have the choice to increase the funding to complete the project or to cut back on the scope of work and stay within the current budgeted amount. The bid specifications will include language that will give us that flexibility. If you have any questions about the process, please let me know as soon as possible. Bids are based on the liquid asphalt index, which typically rises later in the summer. Early summer scheduling of the project could result in cost savings on the price per ton. Are there any questions there?
Well, Teresa, you know the bridge you showed us one time in that area, what's the deal with that bridge? Is that going to impact on your repaving?
No, it won't impact on the paving. I'm waiting for the board to start a discussion on what we should do about that bridge.
But you can still pave the road?
We would do whatever is advised by the contractor. You can stop and start before and after the bridge. It's pretty common because a lot of our bridges are county bridges and we're not allowed to pave over them. So we would take that into consideration. Yeah, Kid Lane, we would go up to the bridge and then continue.
No, but I think what he's talking about is the Stony Brook culvert.
Yeah, there's a Stony Brook, yeah.
The Kid Lane Bridge is new.
Kid Lane Bridge is fine. There's a culvert on Stony Brook Road that I mentioned in February that the town needs to address. But that's an engineering and funding issue that the town board has to take on. The highway department has brought it to your attention, and it's something that you have to deal with after this
So
point.
this culvert, does it have to be, potentially the road have to be opened to
Yes.
fix it before paving?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, not before paving, it can be,
At any time.
yes. It's a replacement. It's almost the size of a bridge. That's how big the culvert is. So we would pave, depending on what the contractor, if they feel comfortable paving over it, the length isn't going to make a big difference in the total price of the project. Or we could start and stop if they're not comfortable paving that part that's starting to deteriorate before and after the culvert.
Yeah, well, that was my question.
Yeah.
There's no point paving it and then having to rip it up to get the culvert.
No. But if it's going to take 2 or 3 years to get the culvert
Right.
replaced, you'd certainly want to pave it now,
Right.
if it can be paved, that little section.
I also have a question about, does the bid involve, filling next to the new, because you're projecting adding 2.5 inches of asphalt, and in some of those areas, it's already high, so it's quite a drop off. I mean, there's no shoulders. I walk there all the time.
Yeah,
There's no
typically the
shoulders,
town will
so-
come and they call it backing up the shoulders.
Right.
So we have in our material budget the amount of money to do that.
So the town does
Typically.
that, not the contractor?
Right.
Okay.
And we take care of the driveway transitions and things like that.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Thank you, that seems reasonable. Enough. By next meeting, we could authorize at least going out to bid and taking a look at that. We keep hearing about money from above for infrastructure, for things like this culvert, so, we can only wait so long, but let's hope we do get something either from Albany or from Washington towards some of our infrastructure, because it's not cheap. Did you want to go on to the next item?
Yes, the next item is the Echo Valley Road Safety Study. 2 years ago, the Highway Department had plans to pave the whole length of Echo Valley Road. There are 2 parts to the road, one length that runs from Fraley Lane to the county bridge, which is 20 feet wide. and the other length that runs from the county bridge through residential development to Route 199 and is 22 foot wide with 2-foot paved shoulders containing drainage features. So the width of the road is 26 feet, but in 2 feet along there's the catch basins and the drainage runs underneath. This section was designed by the developers according to the town highway specifications at that time. There were some questions raised by the supervisor about the safety of the road on the wider section, and the paving project in this area was postponed. In answer to these concerns, we have decided to do an informal safety assessment that will include the residents and several representatives from town, county, and state departments that deal with highway maintenance, construction, and safety design. The focus of this study will be on residents' concerns, usage of the roadway, and cost-effective ways to enhance safety for all users. By gathering data, walking the road, and sharing ideas, we can explore the options that may be available to us now and in the future. Attached, you'll find a letter I intend to send to the Echo Valley Road residents, which will gather information and give them an opportunity to voice their concerns and have representatives participate in the study. I have contacted David Orr from Cornell Local Roads, Mark DeBalt from Dutchess County Transportation Council, and Steve Gill from Dutchess County DPW, and all are willing to assist this effort and have had success in helping towns with their assessments. Attached, please find the letter and form that will be sent to the residents on Echo Valley Road. We will make the results of the study available to any interested party, and we expect to have a determination on how to proceed with the paving of Echo Valley Road, which must take place next year in order to preserve the roadway. So are there any questions?
No, you say it's 22 feet wide with two foot shoulders on either side. So it's
Hey.
actually 26 feet wide.
Yes, but you don't drive over the
Oh.
catch basins. So
Right.
they're technically, when I was talking to Cornell Local Roads, he made that distinction.
Mhm.
He looked at it on parcel access
Yeah.
and looked at the features of the road,
Yeah.
and that's how they describe it. Because you're not driving on the part that has the catch basins.
Or you shouldn't be.
Well, you shouldn't be, no.
Yeah.
That's mostly where people are walking.
So, since I haven't heard this before, can you brief, I don't want to make you go into great detail, but briefly, you know, with the statement about has to be done to preserve the roadway, what is the underlying issue? Yeah.
It hasn't been paved in more than 15 years.
Okay.
The road is breaking up.
Okay.
So in order to preserve it, you have to seal it. Through the development, there are utilities underneath, and we have catch basins, drainage, and lots of features. So we would like
So it's more of a
to...
surface down issue as opposed to some problem underneath?
There's no problem underneath
Okay.
at this point in time.
Okay.
They call it a mill and fill, what we had intended to do, where you mill out about 2.5 inches. Because there, you have to be sensitive to the height of the catch basins and the driveways and all the other drainage features.
Right.
So you would mill out 2.5 inches, and then you would fill in with asphalt. There was another process that we were using, and it was a fiber mat with Nova Chip, which was 2 thin layers that don't make more than 3/4 of an inch. But because we postponed this for a couple of years, that may not be a feasible alternative to doing this pavement.
Okay. And there's no lane striping or anything on the part
No.
from the bridge to
Yeah.
199?
No, the only lane striping that town roads have are on Hannaford Drive.
Do we have some time, can we think about this portion of it between now and the next meeting? Would that be possible?
Think about what portion?
Well, I mean, I'm only looking at this.
Echo Valley Road?
Yeah, the Echo Valley Road portion of it.
Well, it says it needs to be turned in by September.
I'm trying to
Survey clerk.
meet a timeline with the people who are willing to volunteer their time. So in June, we have highway school, so David Orr is going to be tied up.
Okay.
If we don't attempt to do this by mid-May, we're not going to be able to do it until September or October. And that's not the best time to be doing this study.
I think it looks good. It's
I'm just-
informative and simple.
What is your concern,
Well,
Robert?
my only concern is I'm not comfortable with the part where it says if you want to participate in the safety study, let us know. We will be choosing 4 residents at random. That's the part I'm not comfortable with.
Physically participating in the study, walking the street, I was told by Cornell to keep the group for
Small.
8 to 10 people,
Right, and that's
which is similar to what we did on Route 9G.
Okay.
So on that form, they also have an area to voice their concerns now and until we do the study by email or any other means that they choose. I don't want to, I'm choosing randomly so everybody gets the opportunity and it's not just certain people who are very vocal about the road. If Jen Kavanaugh is going to be on the Complete Streets Committee and she wants to join our group outside of being a resident, that's fine by me. But I know that there are a lot of people who would come in and give their opinions before we could have a discussion about it. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. We will include people from the other side of Echo Valley Road, as well as the people who this will affect directly. But we're going to weigh it so that we get 3 people in the residential area, 1 person on the other side, but everybody is welcome to voice their opinion at any time.
Okay. And this might be good beginning to include the Complete Streets Committee maybe, or no, so that we can
Well,
see a process. I mean, it's,
if it doesn't overweight the amount of people,
Yeah.
so by having Jen Kavanaugh there and myself, we're 2 of the representatives.
okay.
David Orr teaches a Complete Streets workshop at Cornell, and he's very familiar with the concept
Okay.
and the application and the cost of the designs.
Okay.
So that's why I would be happy to have him facilitate this.
Okay.
But again, he's got a time frame that we're trying to work within. So I would really appreciate if we could go forward with this right away, because I could get those letters out this week and get people to get their comments back as soon as possible. Because we have been working on this for over 2 years now.
Okay. And can we have at your disposal some, one of our engineers also, if you all have engineers?
Well, I was trying to keep it cost-free.
Yeah.
So if you want to designate that, that's totally up to you, but
No,
I don't have it in my budget to pay for that.
Yeah, well, I can't speak for the rest, but I wouldn't want to be penny wise and dollar foolish. I think, it'd be helpful to everybody participating in this study if there was an engineer who was available to answer any questions related to
David Orr
that.
is also an engineer,
say, why
and
not?
the engineer is coming from the county.
Okay.
If you would like to provide an engineer,
They'll
then
do.
that's totally up to you, but
But
I'm
the
not
county
asking for
people
that.
are engineers, right? who
Yes.
participate?
Okay.
And they're gonna do it at
So
no
if
cost.
Right,
their
right.
contribution stops short of making a project determination or actually implementing a project, just let us know, and then if we need to appropriate some engineering.
Yeah, it's
resources.
more to get ideas about how to manage the safety aspect of the road, not necessarily redesign the entire road. But if it came to that, sure, we'd have to involve an engineer. And we had already gotten an estimate from Brandy for, I believe it was $7,500 for the evaluation of the road itself, and then another $25,000 for the redesign and cost evaluation of doing something like narrowing the road by 4 feet.
Right.
So we did get that a couple of years ago. So we're trying to avoid that. If you can spend $100,000 to resurface the road, is it necessary to spend another $25,000 to $50,000 to do the entire thing? If you can come up with some design that will make it safer at a lower cost and have the input of the residents and the people who are familiar with this kind of thing, I think that would be a win-win.
Okay. Good.
I just have one
Sure.
question. On your survey page that
Yes.
you've, in having done some surveys in the past, it's usually, you get a better return, response rate if it's like the open-ended questions that you have here about the top 3 concerns, list your top 3 concerns. if we could maybe give them some either suggestions to check and then others that they can fit in, so that they could be like that, because sometimes when people have to think about what it is and they put it aside and they don't do it.
Sure.
So if there are categories maybe, like speed or, you know.
Speed, recreational use.
Low visibility, you know, something
Yeah.
like that, you might be able to put some check boxes like that would help speed them actually doing it and like getting it back to you. And then also, as long as you leave an other for things you haven't thought of, that might help with your response rate.
Okay.
Great.
And there was a town that did this type of assessment, and I can reach out to them and find out what kind of form they put out there.
Right, or
And-
maybe Cornell or the county has
Yeah,
some
and they're so willing to work with us. It's wonderful to have that resource.
Yeah, not to slow it down or anything, but I'm sure.
No, I
there's
can
some
make that
general
change
categories
tomorrow.
we might
I mean,
be
if I
able to-
could get these letters out by the end of the week, then that would be ideal. So,
Right. No, I think it's great.
Serve cupcakes at the first meeting.
So do you require a board resolution, or would you?
No, I think
I
we
don't
just
think
make
so.
a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Any
Okay.
further
Second.
discussion?
Do we have a second? Okay.
We have a second from Sarah. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks,
Teresa.
Teresa.
Okay, we are at the point of correspondence. And we have a letter from New York State Department of Public Service, the PSC, John Rhodes Chairman, talking about sponsoring a series of public statement hearings regarding the March 2018 winter storms and resulting power outages. As you know, we all experienced it, and we did our best, and thank you very much to all the crews involved in restoring power for our residents. It was a very stressful situation for so many of us. The PSC would like to look into why it took, in some cases, what they feel may have been an unusually long period of time to restore service for folks in New York State with these power outages. And so they are holding some public statement hearings throughout the town. And I will just tell you about a couple that are relatively close. Athens, New York, just on the other side of the river, up north a tad bit, a cute little hamlet village. On Monday, April 16th, there is both an afternoon hearing at 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. at the Volunteer Fire Department. That's in Athens. The following day, Tuesday, April 17th, Columbia Green Community College. There's an afternoon hearing that's in Hudson, New York at 2 p.m. and an evening hearing at 6 p.m. Poughkeepsie the following week, Monday the 23rd, at Poughkeepsie Town Hall, which is 1 Over Rocker Road. Afternoon hearing, 2 o'clock, evening hearing, 6 p.m. And those are the ones that are closest to us. If you would like to participate in that, I wonder if there is a digital way to participate. We will put this notice up on the town website as well. And I imagine you can submit your comments, yes, at dps.ny.gov website. So we'll put that on our website so you will know. We have a letter from Lori Husted, who would like the town board, on behalf of Bard College. She has been working with the DEC Hudson River Estuary Program Tributary Restoration, that's HREP and Resiliency Grant Program. They have a grant to remove the lower Sawkill Dam. The benefits of that would be that it would remove an artificial barrier to the upstream movement of the American eels and open additional upstream habitat to the eels. She would like to know if the town of Red Hook would like to support that application, and if so, a draft letter is in front of you for consideration.
I'm surprised they want to do that.
It's the lower dam.
I know, it's the lower dam, yeah.
Yeah.
And it certainly makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to remove that.
I didn't expect them
to apply for that.
Yeah,
Where is that lower dam?
It's all the way down there near where the two properties meet, where Bard and Montgomery Place meet.
it's almost when you go down that road down to there's a building down there that the DEC uses or some group of scientists. And
Well,
it's right there, it's right down by the waterfall.
Well, it's the pond, it's the
Yeah, I
pond
know.
that exists there.
I know, but it's not very
Was
far
there-
up from there.
Was there some kind of water power feature in there at some point?
Hydroelectric, there
It
was
was.
discussion of doing hydroelectric. I don't believe that they are contemplating that for that site any longer.
So when they do that, do they study the impact of what taking the dam out will be on the,
And the eels?
I think the
no, on
kind,
the, because when that dam backs up, it starts to flood where Kelly Road is, so I don't know what happens downstream if they open the dam.
I think that to get power, they will have a big pipe is what it boils down to, come down to that area from the upper dam, so that you have a substantial head of water behind the water flow to a turbine. It's down near the the water level of the lower pond there.
This is
Right.
yeah, DEC.
You need pressure.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say DEC is, has been very involved in the dams. The estuary program is looking to remove as many dams as possible to accommodate, the eels. So, they'll be looking at the impacts, as part of this project. I believe they already have looked at the impact of many of these dams, the 3 dams that were also being discussed for hydroelectric. So, is there any thought, would we like to support their application?
Well, in the draft letter, I just think it's important to point out that it does indicate that the water behind the dam near Montgomery Place, known as the lake, would undergo changes as part of the project.
Right.
And I guess BART is proposing that they would put up some sort of signage to talk
Yes,
about that.
to commemorate
So there
that.
could not be
The
a lake
historic
there anymore. There
pond
wouldn't be a
that
lake
was
or a
there.
pond there anymore.
That's right.
So just for people to understand that there would be a change to
Yep.
that area.
Yep.
A very natural change, going back to its natural configuration.
Putting nature first, yeah.
But just in terms of, future historic preservation discussions around Montgomery Place, that may come up, so.
Any thoughts on whether you'd like to support the application, Christine?
Seems okay to me.
Bill?
Sure.
Yeah, me, yes.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
So we don't need to do a
We're just gonna do the letter.
resolution or anything?
Yeah,
This is
it's
a letter
just the
to
letter's
their-
fine, if that's okay, a motion to support the application of Bard College in their DEC estuary program grant to remove
So
the
moved.
lower dam.
I do, because I know sometimes grants really want a resolution, so
Second.
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Again,
We have a letter
Did you
regarding.
get it as a motion, Sue?
No, I didn't get that at all.
Okay. Run it down the, other
This is
side.
for the letter?
Yes, just to support a letter to support the application.
Right, no, I know
by
the letter,
Bard
I got the
College.
letter here.
Yeah.
Who moved and?
Christine moved
Aye.
in, Bill seconded
Christine
it.
moved, I seconded it. A motion
Thank
to
you.
have the supervisor write the proposed draft letter in support of the Bard project at Montgomery Place.
We have 2 other letters. One is regarding our new Rec Park West land, and one is regarding our formula business draft zoning that we received from residents. At this time, I would,
Should we just describe what the letters are?
sure, one letter is a letter that speaks to the zoning codes.
So we're already getting comments on the zoning.
Yes, that's right. And I think Todd sent us a letter like this previously. we're talking about formula businesses and his interpretation of what would be covered, and property taxes, sales tax revenue, it's a lengthy letter. And it says, consider Hyde Park success. And then we have a letter from a resident, from the landowner adjoining our new Rec Park West area, who lives adjoining that parcel, and wanted to get more information regarding the baseball field and the Rec Park West. And just as a reminder to folks, the Linden Avenue property that we refer to as Rec Park West was acquired over a decade ago for the specific purposes of developing more fields. We have been awarded some grant funding so that the first field, phase 1, which would include just the pavilion, the utilities, and that one field, construction of which would take place this year, requires a tweak to a plan that was approved several years ago with public input. And so that is, the letter is regard to that, and this landowner is talking about the benefit of keeping it natural, that area, versus developing it out for fields. And we will have an opportunity to take in some more comments as the property develops out later in the future. And to make the residents aware, we are working with Winnicke Land Trust to develop trails on adjoining 300 plus acres to that property. It will include trails on this Rec Park West. And so we're certainly excited about that state-funded project, as a matter of fact. So when that comes to a little bit more of a developed stage, we'll have Greg Swansea from Winnicke back here to talk about the trail project and where it stands, and so on and so forth.
His wife's on the trail committee, so he must have an idea.
Not Greg's wife, but
no.
the writer's wife.
There's the writer's,
The writer's
person is
wife.
on that.
I wonder if, do we have anything on the website that just describes like, I don't know, sort of like a one-page description of like what Rec Park West, what the intention is there, just something that's like really easy for people to see and
You have a master plan.
look at. I know the master plan, but I mean, that's kind of
It's a picture though.
big, yeah, yeah.
No, I mean,
Yeah, it has a picture
Just
of
Just that
the
diagram.
layout.
Yeah, and I've had
Is that
that,
on the homepage? Where is that?
I don't know, I have
It's
to
on the
check.
homepage.
I brought that billboard, if you will,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
meetings so people could see, but I know that not everybody has, and it would be good to ensure that it's on the website, so I'll take that now.
Yeah, there's
If
new
we have
renderings
that
that
billboard,
you
maybe
keep
we can
changing.
put it up in town hall somewhere so people can come in and see it.
Right,
Might be good, since it's like an ongoing project that we're currently in active planning stage, to have some kind of little update on the homepage so people can
Yeah.
go right to it and click on it and just pull up what,
yeah.
I guess what I was thinking of is, I know the master plan exists, but that was approved, 2012, 2013?
Yeah, something
So,
like that. 4 or 5
And
years ago.
we've since changed the idea for it a little bit, the park, and so having like a one-pager that just says like, here's sort of the long-term plan, here's where to find the master plan, here's what we're currently doing. Like, do we have like a rough timeline of when we may be developing the Challenger Field, so, just somehow, I don't know, in press release form, I don't know, somehow there, it might be an idea to have something out there, because I think a lot of people are curious and have sort of, maybe they've heard little snips and here and there, and,
I
to
think
have
if
a
you just
stop.
review John's monthly reports, he usually mentions something about the,
Well, we don't really review them in detail here, though.
no, but I mean, it's available somewhere, he talks about it.
Yeah, but I think Sarah's a good point, if you just make up a sort of a bullet point
Yeah,
kind
like
of
a
thing.
summary
and-
sheet, like we had
Summary sheet,
before.
right, and then put up a picture of the master plan as, that would be helpful to people who
I
just
don't know
wanna
if
get
John's
some concept of
reports
it.
are on the website, actually. I don't know if they are. I don't think the rec commission has a minutes area or
Let's
a
check.
reports area.
And they're extensive.
And just so folks know that
Sometimes, yeah.
the design of the park is being changed slightly because one of the fields is changing in shape and size to accommodate folks with physical challenges. And we also acquired another parcel, and hopefully we can provide additional buffer to the residents that are adjoining, including this gentleman who wrote to us. So we will have a revised design fairly soon, I think, right, Harry? I think they're working on it,
There's a
right?
meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
And I think there's an 8x10 kind of designs that could
Yeah.
go on the website.
Yeah, we're getting close, so we can show an updated, tweaked version of the
But
master
it is,
plan for
it's
consideration.
dynamic in that it's being changed
Okay,
at regular intervals.
okay, very good. All right, at this point, we would take any more public comments before I entertain a motion to go into attorney-client session. Anybody, Norman, would you like to come up and make some comment?
Norman Gregg, I came for the presentation tonight, and I was disappointed in how it happened because it seems like if you were actually interested in public input, you would have at least a question and answer period attendant to the presentation. By the time you get to public hearing, everyone feels it's always a done deal. And where three of you sit on the committee that are promulgating the new rules, it feels like from this side that you're mostly interested in talking to yourselves. My understanding from tonight's presentation was that the reason you wanted to change the Hamlet district is because of comments that came from the Hamlet residents 2 years ago. Did it occur to anyone in the intermunicipal to query any of the landowners in the district that's affected? Because I've owned property there for 4 years now, and no one's ever asked me about, well, what should happen in that business district along the road. I have questions about why you would choose to eliminate the agriculture support businesses from the gateway to our community, which is that business district. That doesn't make any sense to me. We pride ourselves on being an agriculture community and doing things that are agriculture related, and yet the first thing you do is exempt. You say that the agricultural business, the adaptive reuse and the agricultural associated businesses shouldn't happen in that business district. Doesn't make any sense to me. The other thing that I'm aware of in the meetings that the intermunicipal has is, how do I describe it? I used to tell my father that I could do something 10 times with the same effort it could take to convince my mother it could be done once. And at those committee meetings, you go around the room and you say, oh my God, we can't have a nursery because there might be a backup buzzer. Address the backup buzzer. Don't address the use. You know, because there's 100 ways to mitigate the small issues of the problem. But what happens at these intermunicipal meetings is you go around the room, you talk about any business that might come in, and then you get to the one item that might be a detractor from that business, and then you say, oh, well, we can't have that, and you eliminate that as a use. What used to happen in zoning in Red Hook is you used to have a list of things you did not want to have happen. And now, the interpretation is entirely different. Now you have a list of things that are allowed to happen. And the problem with that is if there's 1,000 uses, and you have a pretty good committee and they can imagine 100 of them, they automatically eliminate another 900 uses that might be suitable and add to the diversity and add to the mixed use of the community. So what you create is a community with no imagination. And if you want to live in a community that's a Stepford Wives, great. But it's just very disappointing because there's 1,000 other uses that could be fantastic for the community. It would be an asset to the residents and would be good for the landowners. And you've got the code so tight that if it were created any inconvenience for any person anywhere in the town, that you can't have it anymore. There's no point going to the ZBA for a variance anymore because it used to be the ZBA would defend you from a single neighbor, and that doesn't happen anymore. Now, if a single neighbor speaks up, it doesn't happen in the town of Red Hook. I don't know. You got to think about how you're developing this town, but I think that you're on the wrong path, and you're making it so narrow that it eliminates possibility and it eliminates creativity, and by doing that, you're limiting the community for our children and our grandchildren. I tell people, your kids are never going to get a job in Red Hook because there won't be any business here.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sean. All right, if there are any other public comments? If not, I'd like to make a motion to go into attorney-client.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Thank you all for joining us